My name is Shigeki Yoshida from the University of Tokyo, and I'm a master student at this university from Japan. Today, I will talk about transitivity pairs in South Asia with special reference to Sinhala. Sinhala is a language spoken in Sri Lanka. Okay, let me first talk about my introduction. Here, I will introduce my previous work, which observes different coding preferences between Sinhala and other New Indian languages. First, Sinhala prefers anticausative to causative. Anticausative type is illustrated in the verb pairs 1 and 2, where the non-causal verb in 1 is derived from the causal verb 2 by adding the anticausative suffix a. On the other hand, causative type is illustrated in 3 and 4, where the causal verb in 4 is derived from the non-causal verb by adding the suffix "ver." And it was shown that the anticausative type is 5 times more frequent than the causative type by examining 31 verb pairs of Hasbromat 1993. I will introduce these verb pairs in section 2. In addition, Yoshida 2022 compared the same verb pairs across 12 New Indian languages, and it was shown that most of other New Indian languages prefer causative to anticausative. So there is a difference of coding preferences between Sinhala and other New Indian languages. Okay. Then the aim of this study is to extend Yoshida 2021 in 2 ways. First, I enlarge the language sample. In this study, languages from different families in South Asia are compared in addition to New Indian languages. So it can be tested whether the preference of Sinhala is a result of language contact with Tamil or other languages from different families. Second, I use different visualizations to show how languages with a certain preference geographically distribute and how a verb meaning is coded across the languages. The findings of this study are the following. First, most of the South Asian languages prefer causative to anticausative, so it's similar to Indo-Aryan languages. Second, Sinhala prefers anticausative the most in the South Asian languages. And lastly, similar verb meanings are coded as the similar compound verbs across New Indian languages. Okay, let's move on to the methodology and data. All the data in this study are collected based on Hasbromat methodology. By using this methodology, transitivity pairs in different languages can be compared. He listed 31 verb meanings, which often show morphologically related transitivity alternations between non-causal and causal verbs. The 31 verb meanings are listed here with the numbers next to them, and I will use these numbers to refer to these verb meanings. He also proposed 5 coding types for the classification of verb pairs. But in this study, I only used 3 of them: anticausative, causative, and equivalent coding. The examples of these coding types are shown here. Anticausative and causative coding are directed verb pairs because we can determine the direction of derivations. For example, in anticausative coding, causal verb is basic, and the non-causal verb is derived from the causal verb. In addition to these directed verb pairs, I will also use the term equivalent coding. In equivalent coding, both non-causal verb and causal verb are derived from the same root, and both are formally marked. So we cannot determine the derivational directions in this coding type. So equivalent coding is one of the non-directed verb pairs. And all the data are collected from the World Atlas of Transitivity Pairs, WATP. WATP is a database of the 31 verb pairs from 95 languages. There are 19 different South Asian languages currently available on this database, and I used all of them for the current study. The languages of the sample are listed here with the contributors of the data. Lastly, in this slide, I will show how I visualize the data. First, I mapped the coding preference of each language by using the length typology package for R. The coding preference is calculated as in this equation, A divided by A plus C. Here, A and C represent the numbers of anti-causative and causative coding in the language. And this value ranges from 0 to 1 and detects the preference on the threshold of 0.5, which means when this index is lower than 0.5, a language prefers causative, while when this index is higher than 0.5, a language prefers anti-causative. I also visualized how each meaning is coded in each language by using the ggplot2 package in R. Okay, let's see the results of the visualizations. This figure shows the geographical distribution of the sample languages with their coding preferences. As can be seen, most of the points are the same color, these points, which indicates causative is prominent in these languages. Furthermore, there is an additional geographical tendency whereby points of lighter color appear in peripheral regions of the area, which indicates in these languages causative is less prominent. These languages include Southeast languages, Sinhala, Hilkorwa, and Bengali, and also the northernmost language, Tamaki. Next, this figure shows how each verb meaning is coded across the languages. The x-axis shows the verb meanings as the numbers, and y-axis shows the names of the languages. And as for the coding type, anti-causative is represented by these blue points. Causative is represented by these red triangles, and equivalent coding by these green squares. So overall, as can be seen how widespread these red triangles are in the figure, causative coding is very pervasive across South Asia, regardless of their genetic relationships. And it can also be observed anti-causative is prominent in Sinhala. This prominence can be characterized by both lower causative ratio and higher causative anti-causative ratio. So in this line of Sinhala, you can only see 3 red triangles which indicates causative, and you can see quite a few blue points which indicates anti-causative coding. This figure only shows Indo-Aryan languages of the sample. Interestingly, several meanings are often coded as equivalent coding of compound verbs containing do become across these languages. Again, equivalent coding is represented by these green squares. So the meanings finish, begin, and close are often coded as equivalent coding of compound verbs. The example of finish is shown here. And so it is interesting that the same verb meanings are coded in the similar way across these languages Okay. Section 4 is the discussion part. The map presented in this talk confirms one of Masker's characterizations of South Asia. He characterizes South Asia as the breakpoint of the two areas of anti-causative morphology. One is Northern Eurasia, and the other is insular Southeast Asia. He states that anti-causative morphology in South Asia can be seen as an extension of anti-causative morphologies in these two areas. And this study confirms his analysis by showing that the languages of peripheral regions, these four languages, prefer anti-causative to causative. In this causative prominent area of South Asia, Sinhala is very unique in that it prefers anti-causative to causative. It cannot be explained by language contact with Tamil. Some unique phenomena in Sinhala are often accounted for as results of language contact. However, anti-causative was rarely seen in Tamil and the other Dravidian languages. So the preference of anti-causative in Sinhala cannot be explained by language contact with Dravidian languages. While this study does not offer any explanations for why exactly Sinhala prefers anti-causative, it does underline the importance of studying anti-causative in Sinhala. Anti-causative makes Sinhala distinguished from the other South Asian languages and Indo-Aryan languages. Indeed, anti-causative is one of the most well-studied phenomena in Sinhala, so the importance of anti-causative has been recognized in the literature. Lastly, a certain pattern of equivalent coding has been found across Indo-Aryan languages. Such non-directed verb pairs have been paid less attention than directed verb pairs such as causative and anti-causative coding in the typological literature. The results of this study, however, shows that interesting pattern can be found in non-directed verb pairs as well. Okay, let me conclude this talk. This study investigates transitivity pairs in South Asia. And it was shown that most of the South Asian languages prefer causative, while some languages on the peripheral regions prefer anti-causative. This finding confirms Masker's characterization of South Asia. I also argued that Sinhala prefers anti-causative the most in the South Asian languages, but this uniqueness cannot be explained by language contact with Tamil or Dravidian languages. And I haven't come up with a good explanation for this preference in Sinhala. In addition, some verb meanings are coded as the compound verbs with do and become across New Indo-Aryan languages. The results of this study imply future research should consider non-directed verb pairs as well as directed verb pairs. Thank you for listening, and you can send me any questions or suggestions for me by email.